God wants us to love him, just as any devoted father wants the love of his children. However, he will not force us to love him. For love, if it is to truly exist, must be given freely. That is why love is a decision of the will, and not primarily an emotion arising from the heart. Just as God's love for us doesn't diminish when we sin against him, he also wants us to imitate his steadfast love with the ones around us, even if we don't always feel the same about them. And if God is also the source of truth as well as love, then the truth must stay the same in all times, right? Faith is the means by which the spiritual truths of reality are communicated to us. Considering the author of reality is undivided, it follows that there is only one reality in which we live. So it matters that the faith we choose to live by communicates the fullness of that reality. After all, what use is a faith that willingly keeps hidden vital facts which can aid us in growing closer to God? We are faced with many who claim that they have a way to God, while still having foundations in the world. In these moments, Jesus turns to us and asks, "Would you too go away?" If we love him, we will always echo the words of Peter. Until you hear the words "true direction," please close your eyes so that you can better visualize the parable as it unfolds. Thank you. As he finally exited the crowd, passers-by came closer to him. They had heard his words, and what had been written on their hearts felt stirred by them. The curious mostly asked where he had learned to speak so clearly about what so many argued in confusion over. A few others were conflicted, having heard otherwise from their elders all their lives. Another, who felt only his faith was true, became determined to counter what he had heard. Speaking up, the man declared, "Why do you lead men further into the Christian lie that this Jesus is God? He was but one of God's many messengers." Turning to him, Jesus said, "It is demons and the antichrists who believe them who lead men into lies and death, not any words from my mouth." Turning at intervals so as many could hear, he told of how to know the true path to heaven. Hear this tale. A man was packed for a long trek down the road, having found a city that was the kind to make a lasting home in. Finding the first path to the city, he started on. At length, he noticed the path had been paved and became slightly smoother, but to his left, a side route had been roughly dug, as if by resentful workers. A man approached from that route, claiming there was nothing ahead but lies, and that it was better to wait until someone came to lead them to a better path. The traveler stopped and thought, but surely whoever paved the path and made it clearer to see sought to lead, not betray. Leaving this first stranger, the traveler kept to the original route. He slowly noticed a beacon on the horizon becoming a little brighter. This has to be from my new home, he thought, and so pressed on with renewed strength. Further on, the traveler was approached by another stranger who came from across a field. In his hand, the stranger carried a lantern, claiming it had been the beacon that had been seen, as well as having built the true road to the promised city. Looking on, the traveler wondered to himself why the other path was obscured by such a thick and dark cloud, and also why this man did not even seem to be coughing from it. Hearing a horrified cry from across the field, the traveler looked over the man's shoulder. He could see women and children being killed, and their bodies being mutilated and picked apart for the bones, which were being used to build the path across the field. As the other stranger approached, his elegant garb too was decorated with small bones, and blood splattered his sleeves and hands. At once the traveler knew this stranger's road could not lead to a contented home, and the lantern had to be a false light. Looking again to the horizon, the first light continued to glow true. Breaking into a run toward it, the man had to continually look over his shoulder or elude attacks from this deathly stranger, who was determined to try and stop the man who would not believe him. Then came a small measure of peace, and within that time this traveler came to a solid log crossing the path, marked with a sign claiming to point to a new road. Another stranger, this time cleanly dressed and smooth of speech, approached him, giving the claim that the paved path could not be a trusted road. but many soon followed behind this stranger, each claiming the one before could not be trusted with clear direction. Soon they raised their voices and fists to one another, leaving the traveler dumbstruck. Clearly, he thought, if these people are so set against one another, how could they know for certain about the way ahead being false? Approaching, he pushed hard against the log, and watched it crumble and disintegrate. It had been slowly eaten away by termites and ants the entire time. The way ahead cleared, the traveler continued on, determined to trust that whoever had paved the road was giving true direction. The crowd found itself silent, either in marvel, loss for words, or sheer confusion. One of the leaders who had reproved him, along with the hardened young man standing near, proudly snorted, "Then tell us, if you can, how is one to know the true path to heaven?" Jesus sighed, hoping those within earshot would open their hearts to his words. Can one not tell a tree by its fruits, as Jesus was once heard to say? Think on this. The first path was true, but some doubted those who paved the way ahead, stubbornly trying to make a route themselves. Then came one who claimed his way permitted terrible violence and injustice on others. And then came a group who continually squabbled like barnyard fowl about which one of them had the right path. Do you truly believe a God who is eternally one could be so finite, or violent, or divided against himself, that he could not mark one true path to his heavenly home? Knowing he could not satisfy those whose hearts had been hardened against him, he strode on, knowing that those who sought to hear would follow within the next day. Presently, however, it was with those who had misinterpreted him that he had new words for.